Hi everyone and welcome to Automite. In this video I want to share a very important reason why you should buy your own parts before you take your car to the shop, and I'll explain why in a moment. But first let me tell you about this car. This is a 2016 Mercedes C300 and I took it to a Mercedes dealer for an oil change, and I was told that I needed rear brake pads and rear rotors and also new spark plugs. They quoted me $1,200 for the brake work and another $500 for the spark plugs. So I ended up, I thought that was too much. I couldn't afford that, so I called an independent mechanic. Then I asked them to give me a price. They said $240 for both spark plugs and brake. That's excluding the parts. That's just labor only, okay? But the dealer's quote of $1,700 is for everything. So I went online, which I'll make a separate video about how to find the part numbers for all the parts that you need and how to shop for parts. And I will also make a separate video about how to tell the difference between aftermarket and OEM parts, which ones are better for your car. And I will also make another video about dealers, the pros and cons of dealers versus the pros and cons of independent shops. This car, I went online and I ordered all the parts. It cost me about $30 for the rear brake stuff, and also another $60 for the spark plug. So it ended up costing me about $400 for parts, $240 for labor. So I saved about around $1,000 or a little more than $1,000 versus the $1,700. Okay, so that's a lot of savings. It's not bad. But what happened at the end is, let me show you over here. The shop actually, as you can see, it's nice and bright and white and brand new scratch on the car. Obviously there's nothing you can do about this. What am I gonna do if I go there and tell them, hey, you guys scratched my car? They're gonna be like, they're gonna say, oh, it was already there, you did that, it's your fault, you know what I mean? So you have two options to take care of this. You either have to go and get one of those touch-up pens and just go over it, hide it, or if you get a professional paint job at a body shop, it's probably going to cost $1,000. So there goes your $1,000 savings right there. So here's the reason why I believe that you should buy your own parts. Now, if you go online, there's something that you have to be aware of. When you go to both dealers and independent shops, okay, and you tell them whatever the repair that needs to be done, what they'll do is they'll order the parts for you, and they'll charge you for those parts, and they will also charge you for labor, right? So it's parts plus labor. But what they do is they charge, let's say they order front brake pads, okay, and it costs them $100. They're going to charge you $150 or something like that, okay? So they always pay a lower amount and they do an upcharge on the cost of the parts, okay? And then they'll charge you whatever the labor is, 1 hour, 2 hour labor. Even if they do something for half an hour, most of the times they'll just charge you a full hour labor, okay? But if you buy your own parts, let's say you get something, you need something that's $1,500. The MSRP, the dealer, is $1,500. Okay, if the shop were to buy it, they buy it for $1,500 and they probably charge you. I'm not saying everybody does this, but most of the places I've been to, actually all of the places I've been to, that's what they do. They buy it from the dealer for $1,500 and they charge you $1,700. Okay, same thing with the aftermarket. If they buy it for $1,500 an aftermarket part, they're going to charge you $1,700. By the way, dealers do this absolute same thing. Okay, so MSRP is 1,500. You get something done at the dealer, they're gonna charge you 1,700 for the parts, usually. Okay, at least that's what they did to me. I'm not sure if every single dealer in the US does that. I don't want to make any accusations. So the reason I'm saying that you should buy your own parts is because every time, at least every time I've gone into independent shops and asked them, hey, can you please use genuine OEM parts? They never do. They say, yeah, sure, we'll put on, we'll order from Toyota, whatever, and they never do. Now, the first one was, I used to have a old GMC Yukon, the longer version, 2002 model, and I took it to an independent mechanic and asked them to replace the rear window regulator, and asked him to please use OEM, not aftermarket. He said sure, and I told him I'd pay him whatever the cost was of an OEM, and he changed it. I picked up the car, and then when I got home, I tried to test the window. I put it down and I couldn't put it back up again. It was a faulty aftermarket, and you should realize that a lot of aftermarket parts are like that. They have a very high fault rate, defective rate, So I had to go back and told him it's not working. He kept it for another day and replaced it. But when I got home and it stopped working, it wouldn't go up. I actually took the door panel off and looked inside, and sure enough, it was an aftermarket window, motor, and regulator. The second one was my 2009 RX 350. Took it to an independent shop because I couldn't go to the dealer because they were expensive. So it needed front brakes and rotors, and rear brakes and rotors. And I asked them, hey, can you please use OEM? I'll pay for it. They said, yes, absolutely. We always use OEM. We don't use aftermarket parts. So I go pay for it. Oh, but the GMC, the guy that said, he will use OEM parts, but he used aftermarket, he actually charged me for an aftermarket part. But it's not the same with the people who did Lexus. So I went and paid for it. I picked it up, the Lexus RX 350, and I start hearing squeaky sounds from the brakes every time you brake, and also this, like metal crunching sound every time you put the car in reverse or go forward the first time, So I had my suspicions. I took it to the Lexus dealer. And I asked them, hey, can you please check out what that sound is? And I told them also I had some work recently done. Can you please check to make sure, to see if all the parts are OEM or aftermarket? So they checked, and they said that all of the parts used were actually aftermarket, not OEM. And that noise that you're hearing, that's because the car, the front suspension, I guess they did it. They either forgot to bolt it in or do it all the way. It was basically loose. That's why it was making all those sounds. And they were saying that how dangerous that is. That you could have just completely crashed in the middle of a freeway or something like that. So a lot of shops, they figure that people don't know the difference between OEM and aftermarket. They'll tell you, oh yeah, we'll use OEM. Don't worry about it, but they actually end up putting aftermarket on your car. And not every shop is going to do this. There are some really honest, good shops out there that will, do as they say. But most shops, they're not like that. They're going to say one thing and they're going to do another. But the worst thing about these people is they told me, unlike the other guy who did the GMC, they actually charged me OEM prices. Okay, they installed aftermarket stuff, and they charged me OEM prices. And the worst of it was that RX 350 on the rear liftgate, there's a switch, there's a button with like a rubber cover on it that you can press that, open up to release the liftgate, to open up the liftgate. So that rubber piece was basically melting away. Every time you touched it, your fingers would get all black and tarry and stuff like that. So I had asked them to replace that too with an OEM part. So what they did is they went online and they ordered the part, just the cover, the rubber cover, for like $10, I think it was. they replace that. And the thing is, the dealer doesn't sell that cover separately. They sell the whole assembly with the button and the wire behind it, and it's like $100 or something like that. So they charged me not the 100 that the dealer charges. They increased it to like 120. And don't forget, they get a discount of about 20-30%. So if it's MSRP is 100, they probably pay like 70 or $80. But instead of charging me 100, which is the MSRP, they charged me 120. And I found out about that because when I took it to the dealer and they said that all the parts they used were aftermarket, I actually took apart the lift gate and I saw my old switch with all that black stuff on it was still there with a brand new cover on it. You know what I mean? So they charged me to replace the entire part, and they just put an aftermarket cover over it that was like worth $10, but they charged me like $120 plus labor, which is like worst of the worst, you know? So this is why you should always order your own parts before you go to a shop. That's very important because you're in control of what parts go on your car, okay? Not the dealer. Now, for the price, yes, you will pay a cheaper price than what the shop will charge you, okay? But here's the deal. Here's what they will do. At least, I'm not saying everybody's doing this, but every single shop I went to did this, okay? What they'll do, let's say if you call them up and say, hey, how much will it be to change the rear brakes, okay? And let's say normally they charge $300, including parts and labor, okay? So let's say it's $200 for parts, $100 for labor. But let's say you take in your own parts. I'm not exact on the figures. I'm just giving an example, by the way. But let's say if you tell them, hey, if I bring in the parts, how much will it be to do the rear brakes? Instead of $100 labor, because they can no longer make money on the parts, okay? They will give you a higher price for the labor. Just like this guy did, those spark plugs and the rear brakes. I asked another person the number of, the labor charge. They said it's 1 hour labor. I think theirs is like $140 an hour or something like that. But instead of 140, he told me 240. That's because he could no longer make money, on the parts. So he told me a higher price for labor. But it's still okay, you still save $1,000 over a dealer, but then you get that huge scratch on the car. And so far, I have never been to an independent mechanic. Where you go in, you ask them to do something, they do that exact thing, you pay for it, you keep your end of the bargain. And you're hoping that they would keep their end of the bargain, but it never happens. They always mess up. They always do something wrong. There's always something failing. You get screwed on a price, or dealers, yeah, they wanted to charge me $1,700, but that $1,700, you already know that you're gonna get nothing but OEM parts on your car. You know that it's a professional person working on your car. They're not going to scratch your car. If they do, you can take it back. They'll fix it for you, most likely. Okay. And they will also wash your car, clean the inside. They will also do a visual inspection of your entire car in case it needs anything else. There's other problems before you get into bigger problems. And also, when we picked up this C300 after the brake job was done, the computer on the dash was showing that tire pressures are low on all the tires. See, and we had to ask them, hey, do you have something we can inflate the tires with? And the guy was like, yeah, and he was nice enough. He actually inflated all the tires. But the dealer would have done all that stuff for you automatically, made sure, all the tires were filled to factory settings. Also all your fluids were topped off and all that. So that's why you're paying extra for a dealer. But the point of this video is not that. I'll make a separate video about that. That's a whole different conversation. I just wanted to tell you in this video why it's so important to buy your own parts before you go to a mechanic, because that way you're in control of what goes on your car, and hoping, of course, most of the time they'll do it. They're not going to keep the parts and install aftermarket on your car, but most likely 99% chance they're gonna, whatever parts you take them, they're gonna put those on your car. But don't go in there without that. You know, you never know what they're gonna put on your car. You know, there are very honest mechanics out there that will do the right thing, always do the right thing. But I don't know, most of them, they're not like that. They'll just say one thing and do another, and sometimes they'll make you pay for it, even though they didn't do the right job. And sometimes, you know, they won't pay for it. They won't make you pay for it, but they still won't do the right thing. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. And if you're not a subscriber, please do so to help us out. Also, please like the video, share the video. This will help us a lot. And thank you for watching. Have a good day.